Back at it again with the Mobius Dickus, chapter 72, the monkey rope. So, the obvious thing to draw a parallel to here is chapter 60, which also described a form of rope. But that form of rope was the line, which is a threatening, morbid, pessimistic, dangerous line, ultimately. Whereas the monkey rope plays a much different rope. I meant to say roll, but I said rope. Okay, so here we have the description, up until this point, we have the description of what the monkey rope is, which is the fact that as the harpooners are cutting off pieces of the whale to be processed, they basically have to dangle over the side of the ship because the whale is, being trailed along the ship on the side, and thus there's a person who puts a monkey rope around his waist and then connects that rope to the other person with a rope around his waist, so they are kind of tied together. And here we get a very figurative description of the monkey rope between Queequeg and Ishmael. And when it's just Ishmael and Queequeg in a chapter, it's going to be good, right? And we're going to see, once we talk about the thematics of this chapter, some connections to other Ishmael and Queequeg chapters. So, but starting out, here's the description. It was a humorously perilous business for both of us. For before we proceed further, it must be said that the monkey rope was fast at both ends. That means tight. Fast to Queequeg's broad canvas belt and fast to my narrow leather one, so that for better or for worse, we two for the time were wedded, and should poor Queequeg sink to rise no more, then both usage and honor demanded that instead of cutting the cord, it should drag me down in his wake. So then an elongated Siamese ligature united us. Queequeg was my own inseparable twin brother, nor could I any way get rid of the dangerous liabilities which the hempen bond entailed. So strongly and metaphysically did I conceive of my situation then, that while earnestly watching his motions, I seemed distinctly to perceive that my own individuality was now merged in a joint stock company of two, that my free will had received a mortal wound, and that another's mistake or misfortune might plunge innocent me into unmerited disaster and death. Therefore I saw that here was a sort of interregnum in Providence, for its even-handed equity could never have so gross an injustice. And yet still further pondering, while I jerked him now and then from between the whale and the ship which would threaten to jam him, still further pondering, I saw that this situation of mine, and here's where Melville pulls his classic move, right? He just can't help himself. He sees this fun imagery, this fun analogy, says, this isn't just about whalemen, this is about everyone, right? I saw this was the precise situation of every mortal that breathes. Only in most cases, he, one way or another, has this Siamese connection with a plurality of other mortals. If your banker breaks, you snap. If your apothecary by mistake sends you poison in your pills, you die. True, you may say that by exceeding caution you may possibly escape these and the multitudinous other evil chances of life. But handle Queequeg's monkey rope heedfully as I would, sometimes he jerked it so that I came very near sliding overboard. Nor could I possibly forget that, do what I would, I only had the management of one end of it. So, this is a very, I think, interesting image of how social and personal and emotional relationships are not only the foundation of meaning in human life, but they are a form of liability. In this class, we've actually been talking about that idea since section 3 of The Song of Myself, where we talked about the hedgehog's dilemma and the notion that any openness you have to the many benefits and many, essential life-affirming aspects of emotional or personal relationships creates a, proportional liability if that connection is to be severed. So when Ishmael talks about how we all have these different monkey ropes to people, they're all people to whom our well-being is tied. And if those bonds are severed, you go overboard, just like Ishmael might literally do with Queequeg. So that seems a rather, I don't know if it's pessimistic. I mean, maybe it's just an observation about the kind of double-edged sword that is relationships. But then the chapter takes a different turn, and while the monkey ropes seem to represent liability here, we get a very interesting description of how one should respond to that liability or to that danger. At the bottom here, when ultimately Queequeg is pulled back onto the ship after almost getting killed by both sharks and the harpoons of other people trying to fight off the sharks. So it says, well, well, my dear comrade and twin brother, thought I, as I drew in and then slackened off the rope to every swell of the sea, what matters it after all? Are you not the precious image of each and all of us men in this wailing world? That unsounded ocean you gasp in is life, those sharks your foes, those spades your friends, and what between sharks and spades you are in a sad pickle and peril, poor lad. But courage! There is good cheer in store for you, Queequeg. For now, as with blue lips and bloodshot eyes the exhausted savage at last climbs up the chains and stands all dripping and involuntarily trembling over the side, the steward advances, and with a benevolent, consolatory glance hands him what? So, though we're acknowledging the perilous nature of being surrounded by both foes and friends, right? The sharks are the foes that could threaten to snap your monkey rope by just hurting you. And then the friends can also hurt you. I guess metaphorically, this would be the incidental harm that a friend could cause you by misunderstanding or being inconsiderate or having a bad day or breaking off a relationship for some reason, right? But then the passage becomes very positive when it says, yeah, okay, we all go through these moments in life where we feel like we're dangling from the monkey rope. We're at the disposal of other people's choices and actions and feelings. But ultimately, you do get pulled back on the ship. You don't dangle off the ship on the whale surrounded by sharks forever. And so what should our response be to those peers we have, which we have a relationship with, who we want to celebrate? It says, do we hand them some hot cognac in order to make them feel better? No, hands him, ye gods, hands him a cup of tepid ginger and water. Okay? So cognac would be like a celebration, a kind of special occasion, right? Queequeg just went through a hard thing. So that would be treating someone with care and respect, is break out the cognac to warm them back up, bring them back to life. It seems to place the obligation of friendship and intimate relationships to be to support people in tough times. But ginger and water is kind of weak, right? It's like weak friendship. It's like not taking the time to call someone or talk to someone or ask them how they feel. And Stubb, in his stubbish manner, starts to absolutely lose it at the lack of respect and lack of care that Queequeg is given with this crappy ginger and water. Ginger? Do I smell ginger? Suspiciously asked Stubb, coming near. Yes, this must be ginger, peering into this yet untasted cup. Then, standing as if incredulous for a while, he calmly walked towards the astonished steward, slowly saying, Ginger? Ginger? And will you have the goodness to tell me, Mr. Doughboy, where lies the virtue of ginger? Ginger? Is ginger the sort of fuel you use, Doughboy, to kindle a fire in this shivering cannibal? Ginger? What the devil is ginger? Sea coal? Firewood? Lucifer matches? Tinder? Gunpowder? What the devil is ginger? I say that you offer in this cup to our poor Queequeg here. So if we read this figuratively, like I said, I think it's pretty clear that Melville's statement is we all have different monkey ropes that attach us, and we all go through times when it feels like we're less in control of our monkey ropes than others, right? When the feelings or well-beings of others that we care about are in peril, then we feel in peril too. But at the moment where you are not in peril, where you have a good relationship with a friend, where you have a strong and healthy relationship, to serve them anything but the best, to serve them anything but figurative cognac, is to disrespect them in such a way that you should remember Stubbs' anger and indignation here at the poor treatment that friendship and intimacy and emotional support, and ultimately the word that I would use to talk about that 19th century idea, sympathy. This is another chapter that fits into that narrative of how Moby Dick definitely, as a novel, is aware of the various sufferings and difficulties of the world, but frequently it seems that the best response to those sufferings, according to the book, is to treat people as kindly and as nicely and with the most respect and care that you can at the various moments where those opportunities present themselves. And The Monkey Rope, I think, is a great chapter which doesn't shy away from discussing how difficult and problematic and harmful and dangerous the vulnerability of emotional relationships can be, but also continues on to say, well, if you're going to have them, which you are, you better treat people well, especially after the bad times. You got to celebrate the good times. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.